Hey guys, welcome to the Neglected Podcast. This podcast is not to change your mind, but to invite you into somebody else's narrative. This is a podcast to give a voice to the neglected. It is also an opportunity for all of us to engage.
Hi, Neglected Podcast listeners. This is your host, Giovanna, and I am here today with a very special guest. Her name is Whitney. Say hello, Whitney.
Hi, everybody.
And this is actually the first time that we are meeting in person. We talked on the phone last night for a little bit, like maybe 30 minutes. And yes. I remember on the phone, love talking to you. Definitely think we're going to be friends after this. So I'm super excited to gain a friend. But yeah, so we're just going to be having our first conversation, really, or second, on air. So I'm super excited to be able to do that. And so, Whitney, tell me just about you, like where you're from. Tell us what you are willing to share about your family, your background, all that fun stuff.
So my name is Whitney Gilliard, and I am co-founder and chair of Gilliard and Company. Mm-hmm. We are a nonprofit that works on meeting the needs of foster care. But all of that, like we kind of mentioned, I'm so glad that you called us yesterday, and we had a conversation so we could meet today. But I don't know, like when people ask that question, it's always like, it's so crazy how God worked everything to be where we are today. But I am married to a veteran, and then we have a 5-year-old son. Oh. We live in Savannah, but I'm from Washington, D.C. originally. Okay. And our entire family has been impacted by the foster care system and doing charity work. So I myself was in foster care, so that's what kind of led for all of this and being here today.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but thank you for having me here.
Of course. And I'm so excited to, at some point, definitely talk about your organization and how you guys help the needs and meet the needs of foster care. But I do want to go back a little bit because you mentioned that your life was impacted by foster care, that you actually were in foster care for a while. So take me back there. How old were you when you were in foster care?
I was roughly 14 years old entering foster care. And I've lived in many places over, like, I always say the magical number 18, because I was up until the amount that I can, like, finally keep track on. The last time I checked, when I was, like, right before a court day while I was in care, like, I kind of tallied up all these places I was at, and it was sure enough 18 places. And not all of the locations were foster homes. I was actually primarily in residential institutions and hospitals and juvenile detention center way before I got placed anywhere in a foster home. So yeah.
And so what was that journey for you? So at 14, it sounds like things significantly changed for you. And for those, like, I would even say for me, I don't really understand much about like how foster care works. So how did that work for you?
So when I went into foster care because I went through quite a series of traumatic situations as a kid. Like, I mean, I was born in America, but I lived in Vietnam for 5 years for the sake of, there wasn't enough money to take care of me. And I was born out of wedlock, and being in a traditionally, Asian household, that was just not acceptable, was not okay. Yeah. So out of all of the choices, I was sent to live with friends and all the way in another country. And then right around the time I was 5, I was brought over here. So right when I entered America was when I experienced at 5 years old. I mean, look at my son. My son is 5, and I can never imagine him going through the horrendous stuff that I went through, right? Yeah. So it was up until, like, I was 14 years old, like when I was in high school. Well, no, peaking middle school, where I was like, you know what? Like, what's happening to me, the abuse that was happening to me, it was not normal. Like, that was when I identified it was not normal. And I kind of started building anger and frustration and being totally rebellious, and I just didn't, it was just not, like, it wasn't okay what I was going through. So I ran away, and when I ran away, I got arrested by police officers that were looking for me. And I mean, throughout the time when I was gone, I mean, they couldn't find me for like about 2 days, and I just got into a whirlwind of, like, drug problems and all these things, and being around people that were predators, and it was just the only place that I ran to. Yeah. So when that happened, the police officer, by the time they found me, I was off the chain. Like I was just so angry, and I started fighting them, and then I got arrested, and then I got placed into juvenile detention center. When I was there, then they told my father, like, we found your kid, and this is where she's at, and we think it's best that she stays here. CPS was called, they did an investigation, and then I was placed into foster care. So with that history initially, I think entering the foster care system was when, you know, my caseworkers and everyone was my treatment plan, so to call it. So in foster care, you do have a treatment plan. You have your counselor, you have your therapist, your counselor, your psychiatrist, a caseworker, bio parent, or some sort of legal guardian that you originated from. And then you have, you know, any sort of legal representatives. And they're there. And I think that when they looked into what I went through, it was very clear there's no turning back. Like, I cannot go back. And I didn't realize how bad. I knew it was bad, but I didn't realize how bad it was till suddenly people outside said, you can't go back, you know? And so that's why I ended up staying majorly in hospitals. It was, there was just no, if you looked at my situation, there's no way anybody could possibly, you know, and when you're trying to diagnose things, there's no way that somebody can automatically bounce back from that and be okay from that.
So for you, and the decision that the treatment team made was that hospitalization was the best way to treat the trauma. Is that what the decision was?
It was, and I believe that's why they originally put me in, you know, residential placements, was so that I can get, you know, therapeutic treatment, so that I can be on medication to stabilize myself. But I will also say I didn't realize that I was diagnosed with over a handful of conditions, and I didn't realize all those things were wrong with me. All I knew was that I was being abused at home. That was all that I knew. I didn't know that there was something wrong with me. But I felt like they had to do that in order to provide me medication, you know, so that's why I believe I primarily stayed in hospitals and residentials. So
how long were you in a hospital or residential? So with the journey for you, you're saying that it was from juvie, you went to a hospital to get treatment, and from treatment, then it was residential. And at any point there, are you going into foster homes, or is it still just kind of in those spheres?
Yeah, it was still within that. It was still within that area. Like it got to the point where it wasn't like, it came from a good place where it was, I'm trying to help somebody, you know, this kid get better. And then it started ricocheting into this whole, like, that was my placement. Like that is a place considered home for Whitney, because there was no foster homes. There are no foster homes. So in a way, for me as a kid who've lived in these places and I'm already used to it, that's the place that they're going to put me in until there are homes available. And there are really no homes available at the time. There's still no homes available today for a lot of children in foster care.
No, and I think that's the, I don't ever want to feign that ignorance is anybody's, like, is the community's fault or anything like that. But I know for me growing up, my interaction with foster care had always been that someone in my church, going through a primarily Black church, someone in my church was doing foster care, but that's all I knew. I didn't understand that that they were stepping into a situation. I didn't understand how even you would step into a situation. Like in my family, there's no history of that. My dad was adopted, but it's not like we were engaged in that. It's not like I heard that at my church and being engaged in that. And so what I've learned about foster care has been through just honestly meeting people who are taking children into their homes and who may work as a social worker. And so there's so much limited knowledge. And so that's why I'm really thankful for this platform, and also really thankful that you're willing to share just what that experience must be like, because just the ages you're saying, those are really formative years. Like your teenage years is when you're figuring out your autonomy and when you're figuring out just how life works versus like this is when you're moving away from like adults are perfect. Like maybe there is more outside of what I'm learning. But for you at 14, it was maybe what I'm dealing with isn't normal. Maybe it's not normal to experience abuse. Maybe it's not normal how I'm feeling. And it came out in anger, which makes sense because at 14, like we don't have coping skills. Like, that's what we're learning them.
Right.
I mean, I think now especially this is like my counselor brain going, I think that I am seeing more of a push of teaching our children coping skills. But I know I didn't learn anything until my 20s, honestly, and how to cope. So for you, it came out in anger, and that makes complete sense.
It was just, it was at that point where I was finding who I was, because, when you're 13 and 14, especially as a young woman, a lot of things are happening to you physically, your body and everything, and you're trying to figure out who you are. And I remember feeling, and it breaks my heart when I think back how I felt as a kid. There's like me now looking at younger Whitney, and my heart breaks for her, because it was who I was somebody at the expense of, a predator. Yeah. That's who I was at the time. And I felt completely broken. I felt shattered. And at the time, little Whitney didn't understand why. And then now I'm a mom myself, who I pick my son up, and he's 5, and he's running around with all little boys and girls. It is like, when I think about what has happened to me, it almost as if I can't breathe when I fathom, like, I can't ever see anything like that happening to a child. I can't, but it happened to me. So during those teen years, it definitely was when I didn't know who I was. I couldn't find who I was. And then on top of that, traveling amongst the foster care system, I will say, like, it's always like baffled me. And I actually told a friend of mine the other day when I was talking about the work that we do, and I'm like, who would have thought, after going through foster care myself, I still don't know much about it, because everything is new all the time with every single case that we work with. But at the same time, though, I don't understand why a topic that is so heavily, it's hurting humanity. Why is that not being brought more into the public light? There are over 430,000 children, and that number keeps going and going and going. And so steering away from like what our community can do, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later, but it definitely is having an insight on when you're a child in the foster care system. I don't go to foster care because I had a great life. I didn't go in there because I had a great life. I went there because it was that or I die. Yeah. That's how bad it was. It was either that or I die. So I ended up in foster care. And no matter what crap the system experience was, there was always a part of me that was like, at least I'm alive today. But when you're a kid, those are not trade-offs. Those things are not trade-offs. Yeah. But that was, and that is for a lot of kids in the foster care system.
Yeah. No, I think that's what impacts me, is just how easy it is to not be informed. And I don't mean it in a crass way, but it's just, if it's not affecting you, if it's not in your sphere, it is so easy, because it's not in the forefront. Yeah. Like, it's not, unless you have it close to you. Yeah. And so I think that is something that hurts me when I hear those statistics. I'm just thinking, like, man, like, exactly what you're saying. And I'm sure that it comes from a different place for you, is like, well, why am I not hearing about this more? And why don't I know more about it? Yeah. Because I think, honestly, it's just, if it's not in my sphere, and not seeking out the information, not seeking out stories. Yeah.
I think sometimes our community who feels that way, I always tell them, wherever I go, I always try to make it an opportunity for anyone who feel like they can't relate to foster care, for anyone who feels like they can't grasp the concept of getting adopted and adopting, I feel like if you've ever came and found God yourself, if you've ever gave up all of your former life to walk a whole new life with Jesus, then you know exactly what foster care feels like. Yeah. And you know exactly what adoption feels like, because it came from a wretched place, a place where it was dark and you just wander and you don't know what place you can go to call home. You don't know what experiences will bring to you to call shelter. But when you find God, and when you find Jesus, and when you call on him and he brings you home, that right there is foster care and adoption. Yeah. No matter how often I've traveled, no matter all these places I've wandered, because I felt broken and I was hurt, and I didn't matter whether I had a mom or a dad or anybody, I found Christ when I was in foster care. And had it not been for that, I also don't think I'd be here today. Because the other thing about having been in the foster care system is you deal with a lot of mental turmoil. You do. Like you absolutely do. You end up feeling, you know, like I went through ups and downs of, should I live or should I go? Should I live or should I go? Because this not finding a home while you're in foster care, this taking a trash bag and calling that your suitcase, laying on a bed and it smells different from the last place that you were at, and then taking, you know, clothes from other people because yes, they're gently worn, but they're never yours. You never have that experience of opening up and cracking open a bag or or a tag, and that's not yours. Having go through that's purgatory for a child. That is purgatory. That is living hell for a kid to go through. And that's why even now as an adult, and I do stay in contact with, you know, my foster brothers and sisters, and when we are reaching into the foster care system, there's a lot of like outcomes where, you know, I have one foster sister who's not doing well mentally. Another one is in a mental hospital. Then I have another one who, you know, just survived suicide. All of that happens because of those experiences. So
no, because at our core we want to belong. And at our core we want to know that we're seen and we're loved just for being us. It doesn't matter how introverted, how antisocial, how extroverted, how you don't like physical touch or you do like physical touch. It's at our core, we are built for connection. And to know that we're seen, and just what you outline, it makes complete sense to me. And those are things that you honestly don't think about unless you're interacting with stories or you're involved in some way. Because just that, like of having to have, just, I love that you use that language to describe it, because I feel like it is that real. It must be that real, because at the same time, that impacts how you feel about you. And so when you look back on that, how did it make you feel about you having the trash bag, having the bed to bed, not knowing where is my home base? Like, how did that affect how you felt about you?
I felt like trash. I felt like my favorite movie is I Am Sam. That's my favorite movie, because there was a scene in there where there's various scenes that I love, but one of them says, you know, I feel disposable. I'm disposable. And I felt disposable. I felt like my time was up wherever I went. I can only stay there for a period of time, however long that program allows, you know, so I am just here for 6 months. I am here for 3 months. I am in this foster home up until they can't stand me anymore, because they're not planning to adopt me. And I know that, you know. And it's not whether that's a bad thing or not. It's just, as a human being, I felt disposable. As a child who's trying to find my own identity, I knew I was disposable. And as an adult recovering from that, there are still times where I feel disposable. I feel like I carry a trash bag. I take on, you know, hand-me-downs, and there's, I'm not against that, you know, but I'm saying when you're in foster care, you have lost so much of your identity. Nothing is yours. You can't change your hair color. You can't wear clothes that you like. You can't go to a store and pick out, I like cat shirts, I'm going to pick out shirts that has that design because I love it. You can't do that. What money do you have that's going to do that for you? Who's going to take you there? I have to go clothing shopping whenever the rest of everyone plans on going clothing shopping. And my social worker better have that number right on the system, because if not, I'm not going clothing shopping. If I want to go to school, I better be able to have my, you know, my behavior straight and do all these things before I can go to public school. And that's another thing. I didn't get a chance to go to public school. I went to a institutionalized school where if I am taking a test and this kid next to me decides to have a complete episode and meltdown, I carry on, they take him out, and that person is my friend. And I know my friend is hurting. But then I'm here, I have to take a test because this right here is normal. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine just sitting here and doing your day-to-day work, and somebody that you know that you live with because you're in this institution together is having a panic episode and they just pull him out and you still have to carry on? That's not a childhood. That's not a life. So my whole entire identity, I always felt like also, you know, It's crazy I'm able to talk about it, because when I was in that place, I never thought there would be a day where I can talk about it, because I'm like, this is going to sound so crazy to people. Nobody's going to believe this. This stuff is that you'll see in the movies, you know, but that was my life.
Yeah.
And that was my identity. The disposable girl that carried herself in trash bags because she was trash to somebody else. She was trash to our family. She was trash to society. And she's just now amongst everything. And at any given time, she could get thrown out, tossed out, go anywhere.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. And that's who I felt like I was.
Yeah. No, that breaks my heart to hear, but it makes so much sense that's what the story was around you. So that's how your brain translated it, is surely there must be something wrong with me.
Yeah. Other
people have stable homes and get to go to school. Surely there's something wrong with me. Yeah. So it makes so much sense that would be the story that would come around you, and that your mind would latch onto.
Yeah.
This is what it is. This is the problem. I'm the problem.
It always felt that way, because I mean, like, even when I was in meetings and stuff, even till today when we work with kids, I always make it a point, let this child talk, let this kid talk, because sooner or later you find yourself as a child being in, and I was there. Like, I remember one day they gave me all these medications to take, because it was right after the time where my dad decided to not take me home anymore. And it was right during that time when he passed over, you know, this letter that the Division of Family and Social Services mailed to him, asking him to go to court for a custody hearing. And before that court date arrived, he pushed that envelope to me, and my caseworker was there, and he says, I don't want her. And something in my head that day snapped. It just snapped. And I was telling my husband, I was crazy, is that that snapping point happens to everyone in their different life. Sometimes it doesn't snap, right? But for me, that day, there's some delicate wire that was meant for love and compassion and belonging. It just snapped like a twig. And it was just gone that day. And I remember feeling completely just cold. And my psychiatrist came in shortly after that, because I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping, I was just quiet. And he gave me medication, but that medication put me on fall risk. That medication, like, at any given time, I was just gonna faint. I felt I've never had problems with my blood pressure. The nurse that would take my blood pressure would say that I have some problems, you know, it's kind of low. And by the time it was my treatment team meeting, I said, hey, like, I feel like this medication isn't working. Yeah. The second that I said that, there was so much pushback from everyone on my team that I landed in a 72-hour room confinement. I stayed in my room with nothing sharp, nothing at all, for a 72-hour room confinement, because that was taken as I wasn't going to take my medication. Yeah. And that was medication refusal. Even though it's my right to refuse, how I was treated for that was simply a systemic thing from, if every child did that, there would be no control. Yeah. And I went again. I was dispensable. I was disposable. I was just there. Yeah. Yeah. I don't like your opinion, so I'll crumble it up and toss it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're literally at the mercy of others.
Yes.
Just even the story that you were recounting earlier about just simply going shopping, you're at the mercy of, if the person wants to take you shopping, if there's money to go shopping, this isn't like how some teenagers might feel, or how some of us might have felt as teenagers, of like, oh, I'm at the mercy of my mom and she won't drive me. This is a different type of, I'm at the mercy of my treatment team to listen to me. I'm at the mercy of everybody. Yeah.
And I've always been I've always done really well in articulating for myself. Speaking up for myself has never been a problem. How I was treated has been a problem. But then it breaks my heart to think about all the times when there were other people who are not very good at articulating for themselves. What happens to the ones with disabilities? Yeah. What happens to the one who don't talk very well, who can't find the right words, who can't muster the courage? What happens to them? Yeah. I mean, you heard what happened to me. Yeah. You know, so you can only imagine.
No, I can't. Like, I know for me, just doing in-home therapy with kids on the spectrum, like, most of my clients are in homes with parents that would do anything for them. But I think about that all the time, of what's going to happen next. what if they end up in a situation and they can't say to mom and dad, like, this person hurt me?
Yeah.
And I think that's when advocacy comes in. And I've met some fantastic parent advocates, but there's not nearly enough for disabilities. Like, it drives me crazy on how easy it is that if you don't have a voice, how easy it is to lose your voice. And granted, it's not the same, but I do think that so much of what you're saying I relate to as an advocate for disabilities, of what it must be like to not have very many advocates that speak up for those in foster care. Like, what would it be like to have more people who are speaking up?
Yeah.
Because with hospitalization is that double-edged sword of, yes, their job is to stabilize, but sometimes it can swing too far into, but where is the coping? Where is the healing? Yes, now they're stable, but where is that part where we teach them how to heal? And a piece of that is sometimes that's not their job, or that's not how someone views hospitalization. And so that's its own bag of things.
Right. I feel like, you know, and the things that I share is not a jab at like the foster care system as a whole. My story within foster care has been completely, you know, all over the place. Yeah. But the message is caseworkers are overworked, underpaid. You think a teacher has a lot too? Tackle that on to, like, you know, having, I heard a caseworker had over like 50 cases of children across the state that you need to see. And you need to see them every month. Fit all that into your schedule. How does that even work? You know? And so caseworkers are overworked and underpaid. You have inconsistency in note translations. You have an angry child, and you have exhausted team members. You have burnout. You have all those things. So for a child who's going through their own episode and their own trials and theories in life sit amongst that, that is why we need more homes open. Yeah. Take in that child, take them in from this weather that's happening, and figure out a best plan. Do you want to adopt this child? Do you want to foster until independence, or do you want to reunify? There's all these other options.
Before we fast forward to those things, I do want to hear from you. What was your healing journey like? Because I'm looking at you now, and I know that you mentioned that you still have those moments, but I'm looking at you now, and you're running an organization, you're championing this cause. There had to have been a point where I Whitney, am disposable, began to be healed. And what was that like?
So this part's always been really hard to talk about, because I feel completely vulnerable when I talk about it. Yeah. But I appreciate you asking that question, because I think we do need to put that on the table too. Anybody who's been through the foster care system, it really sucks having to recover from that. Yeah. I ended up meeting this man that is now my husband, and I love him to pieces, and he loves me to pieces. But before him, I also met my foster parents, and I call them mom and dad, and they are my mom and dad now. But at the time, like, they didn't give up on me. And I thought that was so strange, because I'm like, you're not giving up on me, like, you know, because it didn't matter how rude I was to them, it didn't matter how awful I was in times, they never left. Like, they just never left. They were there every step along the way for my milestones. They were there when I fell off those milestones. And then I met my husband, and he loves me. Like, and when I say that, I say it because he is my permanent. He is my permanent. I have never ever found permanency, and he's my permanency. He is somebody that I know, no matter what, will be by my side. He will never be in another state. He will never be in another location. There will never be a day where I go on where he won't be there. And that has been such an anchor for me. But when we ended up having a child together, the second I looked at my son, I knew that I can't be disposable. Yeah. And when I realized that I can't be disposable, I found like this little silver lining of life, you know, and I wanted to do And I always get really emotional because I want to do what's best for my son.
Yeah.
I can't cut my course short. I can't give up because it's too hard to push through the next day. This little baby needs me. And as far as he knows, I am the best thing in his life.
Yeah.
So when I saw him, I realized it didn't matter that my dad left me or my mom left me. It didn't matter what happened to me. What matters is I don't do that to this little perfect bundle porcelain joy. You know, like he's so perfect. And I was given a chance, like a whole new beginning when I saw my son. And it was from the way that he cooed to the way that he held my fingers. It was like he was holding on to me. And I just, every single time when I feel like because I still do, my brain just says, go. It says, go, let go. When things are hard, when I get stressed, it tells me to let go. That is trauma talking.
Yeah.
That is trauma talking. And it just says, just all it takes is one action, 1 second of pain, and you let it go. And there's even times where, you know, I battle with my son will be okay. Everyone will be okay. But then I always remember when I saw and I met my best friend of all times in the hospital. And I knew that's not an answer. Yeah. That is not an answer. So it was through my son and through my husband and through my family where that trash can that I felt like I could just throw myself away in, I started kicking it away further and further. And I didn't kick away further and further from accomplishments. It was also with downfalls. It was also on days when I sit in the closet and I just cry and I cry because I don't feel brave enough to encounter something, or I feel like I can't push through something. It could be as simple as, you know, my husband and I get into an argument, and then there's this big part of me that says he doesn't love me anymore and he's going to leave me. Yeah. He's going to find somebody better. And then I melt down and I break down and I turn back into little Whitney. Yeah. But every time that happens, my husband will open up the closet. He'll come to my level. I will wipe my face. And then I walk outside of my bedroom door and I see my son playing. And it's a pinch. You know, when people say pinch me, I must be dreaming. That's that little pinch that tells me I'm not dreaming. This is my reality. I'm not in a hospital anymore. Yeah. I am not captive to anything anymore. And I really can do this. So it's even not just, you know, I accomplish all these other things. It's when I can't accomplish them, when I have those moments of doubt, use that and take that as a bat and swing that trash can a little bit further. Yeah. You know, and that's kind of how I got to where I'm at. And I'm still working through it. So.
No, I really appreciate you sharing that and being vulnerable. And that's not an easy ask, so I do appreciate you sharing that.
I feel comfortable talking because you're so nice. Because you're so sweet.
Oh, thanks. But what I love is, as you were talking, I saw that connection of you found your belonging and you found the ones that love and see you. You found that basic human thing that we all need in your mom and dad, your husband and your son. And I think that's, and what I also really appreciate that you said is that you're still on the journey. Yeah. Because I think that that's a part of healing, is that it is such a process. I think that for us, it is very easy, especially in Western culture, to think that I'm going to go to counseling, I'm going to take the medication, I'm going to do the thing, and that's going to heal me. I can say, just even from my study on trauma and then working with people who have experienced trauma, it's not that. It is such a process. And I love that you brought that up, because I think that gives people hope and reminds them that they're not alone. And so if they're dealing with trauma, to know that it's going to take time, and it's okay that sometimes you do go back to, as you said, little Whitney, because that's going to happen in the healing process. The goal is to not run away, and you're not running away.
I didn't have an example before about what not running away looked like. I didn't. It was like everyone else did kind of ran away from me. They signed me out of their program. Yeah. They left me to figure out what was going on. But I had a foster family, which is my mom and dad. And then I had an independent living mentor, which is, her name is Esther. And then I have my husband. Those three group of people, they each were vital to being a model for me on what it means to not leave. Like, it's such a blessing to be able to get in a fight with somebody and get into argument and not agree with them. And then they call back and go, hey, you still want me to carry this leftover for you? Yeah. Like, you still want me to cook for you? That's family. Like, the second I experienced that, I couldn't believe it. Like, for once I get to speak my mind. And not only is it, value, not only is it, I get it, that's witty. It's just that nonchalant, candid connection. And I whenever I argued with my mom and dad, whenever I argued with my husband, they never left me. Yeah. They never, ever left me. And they treated me not like some charity case, but they treated me like Whitney, the person who is a person with opinions, with answers, and somebody who's not worth leaving. That's how they saw me. Yeah. And because of that, I used to get in this really bad habit when I fought with my husband. My first thing to do was to pack my bags and go. And he used to call me afraid, wondering where I was. And my answer to him always was, I will be okay. And I remember driving in the car late at night. I have my suitcase. And I said, this feels familiar. It doesn't feel like a good familiar. And I thought back of everything that Esther and mom and dad and Maurice were to me. And all of that pulled me back home and going, you know what? I'm not quitting, because they didn't quit. Yeah. So.
No, I love that. I love that you had the foresight to see that, because I do think that it's easy to keep going back to what's familiar, even if it's not a good familiar. And so I'm proud of you. I know we just met, but I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you being brave enough, because that's so hard. Because even in, like, yes, we all want healing, but healing doesn't feel good all the time. Healing feels like taking the Band-Aid off and having to restructure the bones and having to hurt. Yeah. And so I'm proud of you for doing it, because it's not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not. Like, we have an awesome VP, and her name is Marissa. And I call Marissa, and one day, everybody has like this like belief that, when you're a leader, you can't like break down. You have to be really stoic. I am so far from that. Like, I am so far from that. I have a great mission. I'm gonna do it to the best of my ability, but I know from my walk of life that I would be foolish to think that I shouldn't be transparent and be who I am to somebody that's my teammate. I will face burnout, and so will this person if I don't communicate with them. So there was one night I called Marissa and I just cried, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I feel like I can't lead this organization. I feel like I am going to just quit, and everybody has their vice. My vice is running and quitting when my brain tells me you're not up to this task." And she just tells me, "You can do this. You can do it." And so I hear that, and in my brain I reach out to little Whitney and I go, "Come on, let's get up. Let's get up. We got a lot of work to do and a lot of people to help, so get up with me and let's go." And that's what I have to do all the time. So I would like to say that I am like 4 or 5 months into not saying that I'm gonna quit. Like that. Everybody has their accomplishment. Everybody got goals. My goal is to keep going and telling all those little traumatic things in my head that tells me you got to quit, you need to stop, you're not worthy, they're going to throw you out like trash. I have to go back every single time and go, no, no, no. And that's rebuilding new habits. So
no, I love that. That was a beautiful breakdown of what it takes to make new thoughts and live out those new thoughts, because our thought life is like my brain goes 1,000 miles a minute. So it's dangerous if you start giving in to the negative thoughts. For sure. So tell me about your organization. I would love for the listeners to be able to have that information and hear about your like how you built it, what you guys do, and also feel free to tell us how we can engage in it too, just in your explanation. And I think hopefully we should be able to add like connections and how we can connect to it. So yeah, tell me about your business.
So our charity is we're super proud, is a 501c3 charity. Girl, when I tell you this is something I never thought could happen, it is something I never thought could happen. I'm like, woo, like we did it. Yeah. And it is a charity that in God's most miraculous, beautiful ways, he created an ability for us to serve children and families in foster care. Talk about everything that I went through and everything I just said. Literally, there is a palpitation and purpose in my everyday walking, stepping out of bed life. Yeah. And so our charity works to serve the needs of foster care. So I would like to say what we do is, one of our biggest programs, dialing back, one of our biggest programs is that we provide housing for 18 to 21-year-olds that are transitioning out of the foster care system. Yeah. There's no normalcy for them. They grew up in the same places that I grew up, and so we have got to provide a program where they can come and be that individual adult and be there for themselves and have us to support them. Yeah. So we provide a fully furnished apartment. They stay in our 13-month plus program. They go to school. We have one that is working at a hospital now. We have 2 that are working with court-appointed attorneys. And we have another one that is actually going to Savannah State University. And so we provide that means of independence for them. And they seek it out themselves. They put in their own legwork into it. And we're really proud. And in that program, they know that they have shelter. They have permanency. They have something where they can find themselves through. Yeah. And so we provide that, and then we provide other services. And we're actually in 2020 coming in, we're going to expand more resources, community, because what we're finding out is to help youth in foster care, you got to look around all these other things too. You have to look into poverty. You have to look into education. You have to look into at-risk and family preservation. So we're going to look into those areas, and we're going to provide resources. We're going to do all of our research to make sure that there's services provided. But we are building an office in Pooler. And that office is going to provide a no questions asked, no judgments made. You come in and you can pick up a donation that you need to preserve your family. And believe it or not, that can be as simple as a pack and play, as simple as food for the day. Whatever it is that family needs, they can have a place where they can come, pick it up, and preserve their dignity. And then we're also providing, we have a Christmas fundraiser going on. We provide holiday memories and things like that too. So our core truly is finding out what protecting children and families in foster care is like, and providing those services with as much dignity and compassion that we can have. Nobody is a charity case. Like, that's one thing that I would tell everybody. We are like me and everybody who's experienced the foster care system. There's no charity case here. Yeah. This is a come in and get the help that you need with your head held up high, because you got this, Same thing that I do carrying myself every single day. I got this, So we do that. And for anybody who would like to donate to us, it is going onto our webpage. It's at www.gilliardandcompany.org, and Gilliard is Gilliard. And you go on there, or you can Google, foster care Savannah, foster care, Georgia, and we'll pull up. Or you can go to our Facebook, which is at Gilliard and Company, or you can find me on Facebook, and then you're going to be able to find our charity, and you can donate that way. We are asking right now, kind of like the art of donation in a way, where I try to explain to everybody, when you donate to us, you allow the lights to be on at an apartment. When you donate to us, you allow food to be in the refrigerator. Sometimes we do take in-kind donations, and we are dialing back from that a little bit now, because we do see that the state is able to provide some sort of clothing and stuff. Yeah. But most of the time when children come to us, we want to give them brand new clothing. Yeah. We want to give them a gift card. Go out and buy that t-shirt with a cat on it that you like. Yeah. Go out there and get what you need. Fresh undergarments. Maybe you want to pick up something that's comforting for you. Go ahead and do it. But we can't do that without our community support. So that is a way where everyone can come in and be a part of fostering with us. Yeah. So
no, I love that. And I think just hearing your story, I just see how God is using your experience to redeem, because honestly, if I think about like, okay, if I were to build something that would impact foster care, it wouldn't be as nearly as beautiful as what you just described, because you have the insight to know that, yeah, gently used clothes are great, but I love that idea of giving them a gift card to go buy the thing that they want to buy, to have that ownership back, because so much has been stripped away that if we can give them back integrity and give them back identity, I love that. So I'm super pumped and hurt about your charity.
I'm excited about that. Like I genuinely want to tell everyone, you know, you can give us your old shoes that's size 7. Until there is a kid that comes in with a size 7, those shoes are going to be sitting there. You can give us your medium shirt, and it could be purple, but we need to wait for that one kid that comes in that was willing to wear a medium purple shirt. Otherwise, you know what we can do is take that shirt that's not this kid's favorite color, but they know that they're not in a position to be themselves right now. We'll go ahead and give that to that kid. How do you want it done? How do you want it done? You want it done the same way you want your child to be treated. Give that kid something to look at and go, this is me. This is me. I am me, and I'm not disposable. I am able to find myself and carry myself, and everything's going to be all right.
Everything you described and everything I was looking at before I met you, I love it. I love empowering others and allowing people to get some sense of normalcy, especially in such a, I'm sure, a crazy situation. I can't even imagine just the levels of trauma that can occur, and just being able to step into that and advocate for them. I think that's wonderful.
Every kid that comes into foster care goes through at minimum 2 traumatic situations in their life. And that trauma can go anywhere from being locked in a closet to, I mean, we have somebody in our program that goes through that. And it can even be as your mom leaving you in the apartment as a small kid, being subjected to different types of abuse. I mean, you think about all those horrendous situations, 2. At least 2 situations. That's minimum. And then the rest of it gets tackled on and on and on. So I'm excited to have this opportunity so that everyone can be a part of what we're doing. So
no, thank you for sharing that info, and guys, for sure go check that out. And so I could talk to you for forever, because like I said, we're friends now. We are totes friends now. But every week, whenever we have an episode, we like to close with a challenge from our guests. And so, Whitney, what would your challenge be to our listeners?
A challenge. Jeez, there's a lot of challenges. For anybody who's listening, who's been in the foster care system, so I guess this isn't really a challenge, but one of my challenges would tell the community, come foster with us. You can't offer up your home. You can't offer up your time. Give us the ability to foster for you and in honor of you. Come to our website and tell us how you want us to do it. Mark in that monthly donation and let us foster and do that on your behalf in honor of your name, and you get updates on what you can do. But I would genuinely say, for anybody who's listening who has heard this story, I don't know how a lot of people are going to feel about this, but I will say, anybody who's been touched by the foster care system, anybody who's waiting to be adopted, try to understand where I'm coming from when I tell you, you getting fostered or adopted is not the epitome of your existence. It's not. If you don't get fostered, there's nothing wrong with you. If you don't get adopted, there's nothing wrong with you. And I challenge you to see that for yourself and look in the mirror and like who you see. Because I hate this, being able to say this, but it's not everybody's going to get fostered and adopted. That is the crisis we are facing right now. Not everybody's going to get fostered and adopted. So for those who don't, see it in your... I never got adopted. I got fostered, but I went through a turmoil time with my bio family where I didn't get adopted. So I understand what that's like. And for anybody who's listening, if you've gotten adopted, if you haven't gotten, that is not the epitome of your existence. You are not less than lovable. You're not less than great. You're not less than you because you were not fostered or adopted. There's a lot of people who are homeless right now. There's a lot of kids that's signing themselves out today, tomorrow, this month, and that number keeps going, who when they place that pen on that paper, they know I have not, the fact is, no matter what else is the fact is I am not getting fostered and I have not gotten adopted. But that does not mean you are less.
Yes.
And so I would challenge anybody who's going through that, any foster parent, anybody who knows of a kid in foster care or who has been there and they feel down on themselves and they feel upset. That's not who you are. And I can't give you a better answer on why you haven't gotten fostered or adopted, but I know it's got nothing to do with how great of a person that you are. Yeah. And so I want that. Anybody who's listening, who is in that position, that's not who you are. That's not the epitome of who you are.
No, I love that. Thank you so much for saying that, because I think that that's important. And I'm so happy that I met you. And this was great. And I just appreciate your vulnerability and your sharing. And thanks. I can't thank you enough for that. It's a gift. Your story is a gift.
Thank you. Being here is awesome. Being able to know that I can share this is awesome. So thank you. And thank everybody on this team for allowing me to be here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad God chose me. Yeah. So I'm glad God chose this opportunity.
Amen.
Yay.
Well, listeners, we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.